play this record as frequently as possible.
Hey everyone, it's me, Mr. G. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to my final collections video, the Nintendo 64. Wow, can you believe it? We've actually reached the end of my collections. 5 weeks later, 24 consoles down, 1,563 physical games down, and we've come to the very last console in my collection, the Nintendo 64. What a trip. What an adventure. Everybody's been here from the beginning, and we finally come down to one of the most beloved consoles of all time. The Nintendo 64 is loved by so many people all around the world. It has such nostalgia for so many people, and it was the first Nintendo console and one of the very first consoles to launch the 3D gaming era. Nintendo launched with Super Mario 64, the first Mario 3D game of all time, and they just knocked it out the park. Super Mario 64 is considered one of the greatest games of all time. Even to this day, it is still a masterpiece. So many incredible games came out in 3D and were amazing. Some of the highest rated games of all time on the Nintendo 64, and the Guinness Book of World Records most highest rated game ever is on the Nintendo 64. It means so much to so many people. It ushered in the multiplayer couch gaming for so many people with GoldenEye and Mario 64. It is such a nostalgic console for so many people, and it is loved by everyone around the world to this day, including me. So the Nintendo 64 means a lot to me because, as I said in my previous videos, we never had Nintendo in our country. My father did get us a little Famicom when me and my brother were kids, and we played the original Mario Bros, we played Top Gun, and we played Contra, and that was about it. I never knew about all the old series. I never knew about The Legend of Zelda, which is now my favorite series of all time. Those series we never knew anything about because Nintendo wasn't in our country. So we never had the NES, we never had the Super Nintendo. I didn't know about Pilot Wings or Star Fox or anything like that. Metroid I knew nothing about, and we never had the Nintendo 64. So I remember when the Nintendo 64 came out, there was this mall that I used to go to all the time, and there was a little game store inside the mall, and in the window on a little old school 12-inch CRT TV, they had Super Mario 64 running, and I always remember going to that mall and looking at the Mario running and just being blown away, seeing Mario run around in 3D and get the coins. And every time I went to the mall, I'd just go there and stare at it and be like, wow, this game looks amazing. So, jump ahead about a year later, I knew this guy who worked in a video arcade. He told me he knows the guy who had imported a Nintendo 64 with a couple games. He's willing to sell it. So I was like, oh wow. I wasn't into gaming at all. I didn't have any games. I wasn't playing games. I didn't have any consoles. So I thought, wow, I really want to play Mario 64. I'm going to go buy this console from this guy. So I ended up buying a console for this guy and picking up one game, Diddy Kong Racing. I brought it home. All my friends came around. All my friends who used to play PC games. We turned it on. We put on Diddy Kong Racing, and it just blew everybody's minds. The water effects were amazing. The 3D was amazing. It was just such an incredible system. I ended up buying Super Mario 64, falling in love with it, and I ended up just buying more and more games for the Nintendo 64, and that's what got me back into gaming, and that's what got me back into collecting. I remember spending hundreds of hours with my brothers and friends playing Mario Kart 64, and just spending thousands and thousands of hours playing the Nintendo 64 all the time. It is such a beloved console, and it's totally beloved to me too. It means so much to me. It's what got me into gaming, as I said. So let's have a look at what I have in my collection. Let's jump into it. So first off, I do have a couple of loose cartridges. As I've said before, I do know the manager at GameStop. They called me one day and they said, hey, we got a whole bunch of games that we couldn't trade in because they're not on the system. Do you want to come pick them up for free? So I did pick up a stack of games for free. They're just average games. I wanted to pick them up because it's a Nintendo 64. F-World Grand Prix. It's just a F1 racing game. WrestleMania 2000, Knockout Kings 2000, All-Star Baseball 2001, nice little red cartridge, WCW versus NWC, WCW I believe, sorry, I can't tell because as you can tell the labels all messed up, NASCAR, and Virtual Pool. So they are just average games. I have a few loose average games. Let's grab some more. So I do have them in these little protective plastic cases because I love to keep all my Nintendo 64 games protected. Here's another great one, Rayman 2, and a really cool green cartridge. The other thing I do is the Nintendo 64 top label. They never had top labels on the top of their cartridges like the Super Nintendo did. So you have to buy these labels. People on eBay make them up. So you put them on the top of the cartridge. I have them for all my cartridges. So that's Rayman 2. As I said, I have this on every system I own. It's insane. Namco Museum. How many times has everybody seen that now? It's absolutely insane. And then we have MRC Racing. It's just an average racing game. Superman 64. It's considered the worst game of all time. Oh my god, is this game bad? It was rushed out. It is considered. So the Nintendo 64 has the worst game of all time and the best game of all time. It's pretty crazy. Ready to Rumble Boxing 2. I do have that on a lot of other systems. Okay, let's grab a few more. Glover. It's just a little 3D platformer where you play as a glove. It's okay. Tetrasphere. It's kind of like Tetris, but in a round sphere. It's like a 3D Tetris. Pretty interesting. Hey You Pikachu. You get this little microphone and you got to speak to Pikachu and call him. It was a little accessory you got for the Nintendo 64. It didn't really work well, so it wasn't a really good game. And then Buster Move 2, a classic puzzle series. Everybody knows Buster Move 2. Okay, let's grab some more. Okay, we have Roadsters. Just an average racing game. South Park. It's like a first-person shooter. It's okay. It's nothing great. This was a launch title, I believe, and everybody knows this on the Nintendo 64. Cruising USA. It's just a cool little racing game. And then a classic for the system, Killer Instinct. Combo! Okay, so now we're getting into some really good games. So that was just the average games. Now we're getting into really good games. I mean, the Nintendo 64 library is so good. First off, I have a reproduction cartridge, unfortunately. I bought it from a guy online and he sent me a repo cartridge. I was so upset. It's a fake cartridge. Because the Nintendo 64, the games are worth a fortune now. People make fake cartridges. It's so common now. You always have to look out for fake cartridges, especially for this game because it's worth a fortune. Conker's Bad Fur Day. Conker's Bad Fur Day is possibly the best graphics on the Nintendo 64. They are just insane what Rareware pulled off in this game. If you play this game, you know why. It's one of the last games on the system, and it's such a brilliant game. It's a 3D platformer, but it's mature rated. There's blood and swearing and sex and everything in this game. Really, really crazy, but one of the best games on the system, but unfortunately it's a reproduction cartridge. If it was real, it would be worth $80 to $100. Blast Corps, made by Rare. So, Rare is this British company. They made such a name for themselves on the Nintendo 64. People consider the Nintendo 64 for why it's so popular just for Rare. Rare made some of the greatest games of all time. They outdid Nintendo on their own system. Some of the most highest rated games of all time were made by Rare. Rare made such a name for themselves on the Nintendo 64, and everybody loves Rare to this day because of it. And one of their first games they released was Blast Corps. It's like you play as a mech and you've got to destroy buildings. It's an interesting game. I'm not a huge fan of it, but a lot of people do love it. There were a lot of Star Wars games on the Nintendo 64. This was Battle for Naboo. It was just an average Star Wars game. And then Resident Evil 2. So because of the cartridge sizes, Nintendo 64 couldn't really do full motion video like the PlayStation because the PlayStation used CDs. That's why the PlayStation ended up beating the Nintendo 64, because all the companies jumped onto Sony's PlayStation because of the CDs. It had bigger space, you could do more. But they did manage to port over Resident Evil 2 with the cutscenes and everything. So it was quite an achievement to have this game on the Nintendo 64. When it came out, it blew everybody's minds that they could do it. Another Star Wars game. Absolutely, probably the best Star Wars game on the system, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. One of the best Star Wars games ever. Such a great Star Wars game. And then, one of my favorite games of all time. It's in my top 10. I love this game so much. Everybody loves this game. If you mention a Nintendo 64, everybody's going to bring up this game. It was better than Mario 64, I feel. It took 3D platforming and just knocked it out the park, and that was Banjo-Kazooie. Oh my god, was Banjo-Kazooie one of the best games of all time. It is such a brilliant platformer. It is so well designed. The levels are ingenious. The graphics are beautiful. The soundtrack is beautiful. Rareware really knocked it out the park with this game. I've played it so many times. I would go put it in today and play it again. I love it so much. I played it again recently on the Xbox One in HD, and it's still amazing to this day. Such a great game. And in the sequel, which is, they took the original and they just made it like 10 times bigger. The worlds are 10 times bigger. There's 10 times more things to do. So we had two of the greatest games of all time on the Nintendo 64. Two of arguably the best platformers of all time. And in my top 10 games of all time, love Banjo-Kazooie so much. Everybody does. I don't need to say anymore. You all love Banjo-Kazooie. You know it! Another classic, Kirby 64. Kirby 64 is a 3D platformer. It's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it. People do love it though. Another absolute classic, came out in 3D on the Nintendo 64. It was one of the few close to the launch titles. Blew everybody's minds. It's still amazing to this day. I played it recently. Star Fox 64. It's like a flight game where you play these animals and he's like the fighter jet, not fighter jets, but like kind of like Star Wars fighters, and you got to go from planet to planet. Such a brilliant game, made the Nintendo 64, still one of the best games of all time to this day. And then, as I said before, I've never played any Pokemon games in my life, but I did play this game, Pokemon Snap. You go around, you got to take photos of Pokemon and accumulate scores and points for better photos. Really cool game. I really enjoyed Pokemon Snap. So it's the only Pokemon game I've ever played. Okay, let's grab some more. Here we go. What a classic for the system. Everybody under the sun will say this is one of the best multiplayer games of all time. I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours with my brothers and my friends sitting on the couch playing 4-player this game, Mario Kart 64. Wow, what an amazing game. Everybody who's played this game knows how much fun you have playing 4-player with Mario Kart 64. I can tell you stories of the amazing gameplays me and my friends and my brother had playing this game. Jumping off the couch. I mean, people play online multiplayer now on their phones, Fortnite and all this, but this was the true, most epic, best multiplayer experience you could ever get back in the day. And probably of all time. Such a classic. And then Rare made a racing game as well. Mickey Speedway USA. I don't think it's as good as the other games on the system. People do love this game. It's pretty cool. It's just an average racing game. And then a really cool 2D side scroller, Mischief Makers. Very strange game. I do like it. It's pretty cool. It's very strange. But it is a pretty cool 2D side scroller. Okay, and then we have, love this racing game. It's made by EA. It's such an underrated racer. It is so much fun. Beetle Adventure Racing. Oh, such a cool game. You do these stages. Some of them take like 10, 15 minutes. It's an adventure. You go around through these stages. You go into like volcanoes. There's like dinosaurs. Such a great gem on the system. I mean, if you've never played this game, you should definitely give it a go. It's so much fun. I wish they would remake it or make a new one. It's such a cool game. Another game that came first into 3D on the Nintendo 64, Excitebike 64. You all know Excitebike from the NES. It's pretty good. I mean, it is what it is. It's pretty good. I thought it was okay. Oh, another classic racer on the Nintendo 64, F-Zero X. Sorry. Wow. I mean, if you play this game, this goes at like 1,000 miles an hour. The frame rate is ridiculous. So much fun. So much fun. And then we're down to the last 3 loose cartridges I have. Classic for the system, Mario Golf. One of the better Mario Golf games. So cool. Pokemon Puzzle League. Just a pretty cool puzzle game. I do like that game. And the last loose cartridge I have, Turok Rage Wars, a 4-player multiplayer first-person shooter. Really cool if you get 4 people around and play this. This is the black cartridge. There is a gray cartridge that's worth a fortune, but I only unfortunately have the black cartridge. So that was it for my loose games. Now we're getting into my complete in box Nintendo 64 games. So as I said through all my videos, I'm trying to go for a complete in box Nintendo 64 set. Yeah, it's going to take me the rest of my life. Nintendo 64 games are just worth a fortune now. Getting complete in box Nintendo 64 games, you're paying an absolute fortune for them. But so many collectors always go for a complete in box Nintendo 64 set. It's always the first set they try to complete. Main reason being is that there were only 296 games on the Nintendo 64 in North America. So it's a very easy set to go for because there's hardly any games on the system. But man, is it hard because of the price and because everybody used to throw away the boxes, and keeping the old boxes and booklets is so hard to find. That's why they're worth a fortune. So as I said, I've been focusing on trying to get a complete in box Nintendo 64 set. As of today, I have 46. So I'm missing 251 games. Wow, it's going to take me forever. But I do have 46 complete in box Nintendo 64 games. Absolutely love collecting complete in box Nintendo 64 games. Mainly because it's so cool to have that collection, and also for nostalgia reasons because I love the console so much. So I do have quite a few, so let's jump into it. So I do have some average games. I have Bass Hunter 64, which is just an okay fishing game. WCW vs. NWO World Tour. So I do have that complete in box. NHL Breakaway 99. I do have that complete in box. And WWF Attitude complete in box. So I do have a few average games for my collection there. You saw this in my pickups video yesterday. Command and Conquer complete in box. Gex 64 complete in box. It's like a 3D platformer. It's not that good, but I have that. Just an okay fighting game. Fighter's Destiny. My brother can tell you a story about why this game means so much to him. It's just an average fighter game, but I do have that complete in box. And then I have Ready to Rumble Boxing 1 complete in box. And Ridge Racer 64 complete in box, which is a pretty cool racing game. And also I picked up recently All Marines complete in box, which is a first person shooter. Okay, so let me just move those out the way and get some more here. So I have another fighting game. It's just an okay fighting game. Dark Rift. That's an okay fighting game. Pilot Wing 64. It was a launch title. Really cool flight simulator made by Nintendo. That's pretty cool. Automobilia Lamborghini. Just an okay driving game. And then San Francisco Rush Extreme Racing and San Francisco Rush Extreme Racing 2 USA. So I do have both of the San Francisco Rush games. These are pretty cool races on the Nintendo 64. A lot of people love these games. Okay, and then we have, I picked this up in Goodwill. I've talked about it before. A complete in box Pokemon Stadium with the transfer pack. Really cool to have that, and I picked it up for $20 in Goodwill. Really cool. I've got that complete in box. I believe it was a launch title, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. It's just an average Star Wars game. It's like a first person, third person shooter. That's okay, that's pretty cool. Body Harvest. It's like a sci-fi shooter. You go to planets, kind of like you got to take on all these bugs and stuff and go around shooting stuff. It's just okay. The graphics look very outdated on this game though. One of my favorite Wipeouts, it runs so well on the Nintendo 64. Wipeout 64. Wipeout 64 is really good on the Nintendo 64. One of the best Mario Tennises. Mario Tennis for the Nintendo 64. This game is so cool. People will argue that this is the best Mario Tennis game. So much fun. Wow. And then Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Pretty cool little racing game on the series. There were a lot of Star Wars games on the Nintendo 64. Another Rareware game. I love this game. I finished it. I thought it was so cool. Jet Force Gemini. Jet Force Gemini is such an underrated game. Unfortunately, the controls didn't work because you only had one analog stick on the Nintendo 64. If they were re-release this game with dual analog sticks, it would work really well. Such a great game. You play these twins and this dog, and you got to go down to these planets, and there's all these insect warriors. Really cool little shooter. I do love that game a lot. Another classic for the system, Yoshi's Story. Yoshi's Story is a really cool 2D platformer. Everybody knows this game, knows why it's so cool. Looks really cool, really great game. Okay, and then we have Castlevania. A lot of people do not like this game. They took the 2D Castlevania games and they put it into 3D. It's considered one of the worst Castlevania games. I did finish it. I thought it was okay. I didn't mind this game. I thought it was pretty cool. I did like the music and everything. People give it too much flack, but I actually do like it quite a lot. I've talked about this in my previous videos. It is my most valuable game in my collection, Pokemon Stadium 2 Holographic Edition. That is the most valuable game I own in my collection, and I got it from GameStop. Really cool. Two of my favorite games on the system, two of the best shooters on the system, Turok 1 and Turok 2. Really, really cool shooters. I believe that was the launch title. When people got this first-person shooter in 3D on the Nintendo 64, that blew everybody away. People had never seen that before. And I love Turok 2. I 100%ed this game. I love Turok 2. I thought it looked amazing on the Nintendo 64. Again, absolute classic. I cannot tell you how many hours me and my brother put into this game. It's ridiculous. 1080 snowboarding. Yes, SSX3 is the best snowboarding game of all time, but this was untouched for so many years. You could even argue this is the best snowboarding game of all time. Such a great snowboarding game. It just feels like you're snowboarding. You go down the mountains, beautiful graphics, incredible soundtrack. Just such a great snowboarding game. It just, even to this day, I was playing it recently and I was just like, wow, this game is still incredible. Okay, and then we have Donkey Kong 64. I believe it's the only 3D Donkey Kong game ever made. A lot of people do love this game. It was one of the first games that required the expansion pack. The expansion pack was a 4 megabytes expansion for the Nintendo 64 to have better graphics, up the memory so you could make better lighting and all that. Rareware made this game as well, so it was the first game to require it. I still have the original plastic on my box because this is one of my original games I bought back in the day. I wasn't a big fan of this game. I didn't mind the collectathon. It's such a huge collectathon. You've got to collect so many things for this game. I just found it so boring. It wasn't memorable at all. I can tell you every stage in Banjo-Kazooie, how good every stage was, how memorable it was. For the life of me, I cannot remember any of the stages in this game because it just was boring. The boss battles were boring. Collecting everything got a bit tedious. So, I mean, it did look great. A lot of people do love this game, but for me, I wasn't a huge fan of Donkey Kong 64. Alrighty. So, this was the first game I bought on the system. Diddy Kong Racing. I love Diddy Kong Racing. Oh my god, do I love this game. It is such a fun adventure racing game. It's got like an adventure aspect to it. You've got to travel around. You've got to take on bosses in a racing game. The graphics are incredible. Some of the best water effects on the system. The characters are great. Just so much love for this game. It was the first game I bought on my Nintendo 64. It was the first game I bought when I got back into gaming. It was what started me into collecting and playing games again. Diddy Kong Racing. Love this game so much. And then absolute classic for the system. It also made the Nintendo 64. GoldenEye 007. Absolutely classic first-person shooter made by Rare again. I mean, these guys really made some truly amazing games on the system. Considered one of the best multiplayer experiences of all time. 4-player GoldenEye. So many people will tell you this is the best multiplayer experience you'll ever have. The story mode is great. It still plays great to this day. And it's what made the Nintendo 64. I believe it's one of the biggest selling games of all time on the Nintendo 64. I think it was on the charts for like 3 years straight. Everybody loves GoldenEye 64, but for me, one of the best games on the system and one of my favorite games of all time was Perfect Dark. Wow! Cannot tell you how good this game is. It is so ahead of its time. It shouldn't even be running on the Nintendo 64. It looks so good. It's got one of the best stories of all time. The gameplay is phenomenal. It is such a great first-person shooter. The multiplayer is untouched. You can play with eight robots on your own. It just looks incredible. it shouldn't run on the Nintendo 64. It's so ahead of its time. I put in over 140 hours into this game. My cartridge is actually worn out from taking it in and out every time I played the game. That's how much I played it. I still have the original plastic on it. I love Perfect Dark. I cannot tell you how much I love this game. It truly is a masterpiece. And it's made by Rare. I mean, come on, Rare were amazing on the system. And then we're getting down to the last 4 games on the system. With the launch title, the game that made the Nintendo 64, one of the greatest games of all time, Super Mario 64. When this came out, not only did it blow my mind, it blew everybody's mind. Nobody had ever seen Mario in 3D. It made the Nintendo 64. It is still considered one of the greatest games of all time. People are still playing this game every day. It still plays phenomenal to this day. It is what got me into gaming again, what made me a collector, and it's still one of the greatest games of all time. I don't really need to say anything else about this because everybody loves this game. And then one of my favorite things in my collection, one of the best games on the system, arguably some of the best graphics on the system, I have a factory sealed Wave Race 64. Also, when people saw this game for the first time, it blew everybody's minds. The water effects on this game are insane, and it plays so well. Even to this day, if you put this game on and play it to this day, it still is so much fun, and the soundtrack is so amazing. The music in this game is so cool. I did pick this up with OfferUp. A woman had a complete box in a Wave Race. She was asking $15. I got to the house, she brought it out. It was still factory sealed. I couldn't believe it. I got a factory sealed Wave Race 64 for $15, and it is one of the best games on the system. Phenomenal. And then we're getting down to arguably the 2 greatest games of all time. It is in my top, probably in my favorite games of all time. Everybody loves it. It made the Nintendo 64 as well. It ushered in the 3D era like no others. The Guinness Book of World Records considered it the highest rated game of all time. 20 years later, no other game has been rated higher. You all know what it is. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I mean, I know I say this all the time, people, but wow, are these phenomenal games that I love and everybody loves. I mean, everybody on the planet knows how amazing Ocarina of Time 64 is. It is the highest rated game of all time for a reason. It is such a perfect game. They brought Zelda into 3D and they just perfected it. It is such a amazing experience to play through this game. Even to this game, the design is 100% perfect, and the sequel is also amazing. It's such a great game. It's some of the it is the highest rated games of all time, the most beloved games of all time, my most cherished games, my brother's most cherished games. Everybody knows that these are the greatest games of all time, and it also made the Nintendo 64. So that is my Nintendo 64 collection. Wow, I mean, come on, look at that library. This system means so much to so many people. It has such nostalgia for a reason. There's a reason why we all want to collect for it and go for a complete box set. It's just such an incredible system. As I said before, Nintendo just knocked it out the park with 3D in this game. They what made 3D games. They showed the whole industry how to do it in 3D, and it is just such a beloved console for me and everybody else. Whew, wow, okay, so that's it. We got through all of my consoles. We did 24 videos spanning 5 weeks. As I said, over 1,500 games. I have grown so much on YouTube. If you go back and look at my first videos that I did 5 weeks ago, look at my Super Nintendo collection video. It is so bad. There's no editing. My hair was messed up. I didn't know how to talk. And if you look at now at what I'm doing now on YouTube and how I've grown, and how I'm editing, how I feel, I've got stand, how I talk, it's just insane. I've just grown over 5 weeks. I've gotten so many subscribers, so much positive feedback. Everybody's been loving the videos. Everybody's been there from the beginning and seen it all the way through to the very end. It's insane. I've had so much fun. I hope everybody else has had so much fun looking at all my games, my collections. I'm so sad it's come to an end. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to have to think about what videos I'm going to make. But I'm just so glad that everybody was here to see my collection, see my game room, see why I'm a gamer, see why I love collecting games, and why it's just the coolest thing in the world. Even to this day, I still love doing it. And I hope everybody enjoyed watching all these videos. Give me a like, subscribe. I'm Mr. G. I'm out.